Emotional detachment is a transformative act that reclaims your power and redirects your focus inward. It doesn't mean you stop feeling or become indifferent, but rather you shift the balance of your emotional investment. In relationships, whether personal or professional, there is often a tendency for one party to overextend themselves, pouring care, attention, and energy into someone who doesn't reciprocate in the same measure. This imbalance can lead to feelings of frustration, inadequacy, or even resentment. Emotional detachment breaks this cycle and creates a profound shift in dynamics that can often be surprising to the other person. When you detach emotionally, you send a clear message not just to the other person, but also to yourself. That message is rooted in the understanding that your worth is not dependent on their validation or approval. It is a subtle yet powerful act of self-preservation, a way of reclaiming the energy you've been giving away too freely. This act is not about playing games or trying to manipulate someone else's behavior. Instead, it's about drawing a line in the sand, recognizing your boundaries, and enforcing them with quiet strength. The process begins with awareness. Often, people don't realize how much emotional labor they are expending until they take a step back. Think about the last time you cared so deeply about someone else's actions, words, or feelings that it consumed your thoughts and affected your mood. Did you find yourself overanalyzing every interaction, replaying conversations, or strategizing how to gain their attention or approval? This kind of overthinking is a sign that you've handed over too much of your power. By consciously deciding to detach, you interrupt this draining pattern and redirect that energy into something far more constructive, your own growth and well-being. Emotional detachment also has a ripple effect. When you stop caring excessively, it shifts the dynamic in a relationship. The other person is often caught off guard. They may have grown accustomed to your constant presence, your unwavering support, or your predictable reactions. Suddenly, that is no longer the case. The calls or messages they took for granted are no longer there. The attention they once received without asking now feels elusive. This absence creates a vacuum, and human nature abhors a vacuum. The other person begins to notice the space you've left behind, and this noticing can spark a change in their behavior. From a psychological perspective, this shift is fascinating. When someone no longer feels the certainty of your care, it disrupts their sense of security. People often value what they fear losing, and when you stop over caring, they start to question what happened and why. This questioning can lead to introspection on their part. As they begin to examine their own feelings and behavior, they may realize they've taken your efforts for granted or underestimated your importance in their life. Furthermore, emotional detachment removes the pressure you may have inadvertently placed on the relationship. When you care too much, it can sometimes feel suffocating to the other person, even if that was never your intention. Your detachment allows them breathing room, a chance to reflect without feeling overwhelmed or obligated. Paradoxically, this space often brings them closer to you. It's as if the absence of your energy creates an opportunity for them to truly see and appreciate your value. One of the most profound aspects of emotional detachment is the clarity it provides. When you're caught in the throes of overcaring, your perspective can become clouded. You may overlook red flags, make excuses for bad behavior, or ignore your own needs in an effort to keep the relationship intact. Detachment clears away the noise and allows you to see the situation for what it truly is. You begin to recognize patterns, understand motivations, and most importantly, prioritize your own well-being. The act of detachment is not without its challenges. Initially, you may feel a sense of loss or even guilt. After all, caring deeply is often a reflection of your generous spirit. But over time, you'll come to understand that detachment is not about abandoning your empathy or compassion. It's about setting boundaries that protect your emotional health. It's about recognizing that your care and energy are precious resources that should be given thoughtfully, not squandered on those who don't appreciate or reciprocate them. When you stop overcaring, you also open the door to self-discovery. The energy you once directed outward can now be channeled inward. You begin to explore your own interests, passions, and goals. You reconnect with the things that bring you joy and fulfillment independent of anyone else's input or approval. This renewed focus on yourself is incredibly empowering. It reminds you that your happiness and sense of self-worth are not tied to another person's actions or opinions. This process of rediscovery often changes how you view the relationship itself. You may find that without the weight of overcaring, you're able to engage with the other person in a more balanced and authentic way. Alternatively, you may realize that the relationship no longer serves you and decide to let it go altogether. Either way, emotional detachment gives you the clarity and strength to make decisions that align with your true self. Scarcity is one of the most powerful principles governing human behavior, influencing how people value things, opportunities, and even relationships. When something is abundant or easily accessible, it often loses its perceived importance. However, the moment that same thing becomes scarce or limited, its value skyrockets. This phenomenon is deeply ingrained in human psychology and plays a significant role in interpersonal dynamics. The principle of scarcity operates on a simple but profound premise. People are hardwired to desire what they think they might lose or what seems exclusive and hard to attain. In relationships, this principle manifests in subtle but impactful ways. When you care excessively and make yourself constantly available, your presence and energy may unintentionally become undervalued. The other person begins to take your care and effort for granted, not because they are necessarily unkind or unappreciative, but because constant availability creates a sense of normalcy. They may unconsciously assume that your attention and care will always be there, no matter how they respond or fail to respond. This abundance of attention dilutes its value over time. The turning point comes when you decide to withdraw that excessive care and make your time, energy, and attention less available. This shift is not about punishing the other person or creating unnecessary distance, but about rebalancing the scales. Suddenly, what was once abundant becomes scarce. Where there was once a flood of calls, texts, or acts of kindness, there is now quiet and space. The other person starts to feel the absence of your presence, and with that absence comes a change of perception. What was once taken for granted now feels like a privilege that must be earned. This scarcity triggers a psychological response often referred to as the fear of loss. Humans are deeply motivated to avoid losing something they value, even if they didn't fully appreciate it before. When your care and attention are no longer readily available, the other person begins to question why. They may start to reflect on their own behavior and consider whether they've done something to cause the shift. This introspection can lead to a renewed appreciation for your efforts and a desire to restore the connection. The principle of scarcity also taps into a universal desire for exclusivity. People want to feel that they have access to something or someone that is not readily available to everyone. When you overextend yourself in caring, you inadvertently dilute your sense of exclusivity. By stepping back and focusing on yourself, you become less accessible, which naturally increases your perceived value. This exclusivity makes the other person view you in a new light, often with a heightened sense of respect and admiration. Another aspect of scarcity's power lies in its ability to create a sense of urgency. When something is always available, there's no rush to appreciate or secure it. But when it becomes scarce, people are compelled to act quickly, fearing they might miss out. In the context of relationships, this urgency can manifest as a sudden increase in effort or attention from the other person. They may start reaching out more frequently, expressing their feelings more openly, or taking steps to ensure they don't lose you. This shift is not manipulative, but a natural consequence of the psychological impact of scarcity. The beauty of this principle is that it works without you needing to force it. Scarcity is not about withholding affection or playing games. It's about recognizing your own worth and setting boundaries that reflect that recognition. When you stop giving care unconditionally and begin to prioritize yourself, you create a natural scarcity of your energy and attention. This shift happens organically and is rooted in self-respect rather than manipulation. As the other person begins to feel the impact of this scarcity, they are often drawn to you in a deeper and more meaningful way. They may start to realize the depth of your contributions and the unique qualities you bring to the relationship. This realization can lead to a genuine desire to reciprocate and invest in the connection. In some cases, the other person may even undergo their own transformation, recognizing patterns of behavior that need to change for the relationship to thrive. The effect of scarcity is not limited to romantic relationships. It applies to all kinds of interpersonal connections. Whether it's a friendship, a family relationship, or a professional dynamic, the same principle holds true. When you make yourself too accessible or give too much without setting boundaries, your efforts may be undervalued. By creating a sense of scarcity, you encourage others to appreciate your contributions and treat you with the respect you deserve. The impact of scarcity extends beyond how others perceive you. It also changes how you view yourself. When you decide to prioritize your needs and make your care less accessible, you begin to see your own worth more clearly. This newfound self-awareness can be incredibly empowering, strengthening your confidence and reinforcing your boundaries. It reminds you that your time, energy, and attention are valuable and should be given thoughtfully, not indiscriminately. Scarcity also fosters a healthier balance in relationships. By stepping back and allowing the other person to miss your presence, you create space for mutual appreciation to grow. The dynamic shifts from one-sided care to a more balanced exchange of effort and attention. This balance is essential for any relationship to thrive, as it ensures that both parties feel valued and respected. Attention is one of the most valuable forms of currency in human relationships. It's something people crave, often without fully realizing how deeply it influences their behavior and emotions. When someone gives their undivided attention, it creates a sense of validation, connection, and significance. However, the opposite is also true. When attention is withdrawn, it can leave a noticeable void, triggering introspection and a desire to regain what has been lost. This dynamic becomes particularly powerful in relationships where one person has been consistently overgiving their attention, only to decide to reclaim it. The act of withdrawing attention is not about being cruel or distant, rather, it is a way to reset the balance. When you stop giving someone your constant focus, it forces them to evaluate the role you've played in their life. Many times, people don't fully appreciate the attention they receive until it's no longer there. They become accustomed to it, taking it for granted, and assuming it will always be available. By consciously redirecting your attention elsewhere, you create an opportunity for the other person to feel the impact of your absence. Attention has a unique way of highlighting priorities. When someone is no longer the primary recipient of your focus, they start to notice. They notice the lack of messages, the absence of calls, or the diminished enthusiasm in your interactions. This shift can be unsettling, as it disrupts the familiar dynamic they've come to rely on. It's not uncommon for people to react by trying to recapture the attention they feel slipping away. This reaction stems from a deep-seated psychological need for connection and affirmation. One of the most fascinating aspects of attention is its relationship to self-perception. People often gauge their own value based on the attention they receive from others. When someone who once paid them significant attention suddenly stops, it can lead to feelings of uncertainty or insecurity. They may start to question whether they did something wrong, whether they are still valued, or whether they need to change their behavior to regain that connection. This period of questioning is a natural response to the void created by the withdrawal of attention. However, the true power of withdrawing attention lies not in the effect it has on the other person, but in what it reveals about yourself. When you stop overgiving your attention, you begin to realize how much energy you've been investing in someone else, often at the expense of your own well-being. Attention is a finite resource, and when it's constantly directed outward, it leaves little room for self-reflection or personal growth. By choosing to focus your attention inward, you reclaim your energy and start to prioritize your own needs and aspirations. This shift in focus can be incredibly liberating. Instead of worrying about how someone else perceives you or whether they appreciate your efforts, you start to evaluate your own goals, desires, and values. You may find that the time and energy you once spent on someone else can now be redirected toward pursuits that bring you joy and fulfillment. This process of rediscovery can lead to a stronger sense of self and a clearer understanding of what truly matters to you. Withdrawing attention also has a way of testing the strength and authenticity of a relationship. If someone truly values you, they will notice the shift and make an effort to bridge the gap. They will seek to understand what changed and take steps to restore the connection. On the other hand, if their interest wanes when your attention is no longer freely given, it may reveal that their investment in the relationship was conditional or superficial. This clarity, while sometimes painful, is invaluable for making decisions about who deserves your time and energy. The psychological impact of attention withdrawal is deeply rooted in the human brain. Studies have shown that receiving attention activates the reward centers in the brain, releasing feel-good chemicals like dopamine. Conversely, the absence of attention can create a sense of loss or longing. This neurological response underscores why withdrawing attention is such a powerful tool for resetting dynamics. It taps into the fundamental human need for connection and forces the other person to reevaluate how much they value your presence. When you stop overgiving your attention, you also create space for balance to emerge in the relationship. Overinvesting in someone often leads to a one-sided dynamic where the other person becomes passive, complacent, or even indifferent. By stepping back, you encourage them to take a more active role. This shift can lead to a healthier, more reciprocal relationship where both parties contribute equally to maintaining the connection. It's important to note that withdrawing attention doesn't mean cutting someone off completely or ignoring them. It's about being intentional with where you direct your focus and energy. Instead of constantly reaching out or making them the center of your world, you choose to engage on your own terms. This act of prioritizing yourself sends a powerful message your attention is valuable, and it should be earned, not taken for granted. This recalibration often brings a sense of empowerment. You start to realize that your attention is a gift, not an obligation. By giving it sparingly and thoughtfully, you ensure that it holds its value. This change in perspective can be transformative, not just in your relationships, but in every aspect of your life. It reminds you of your own worth and reinforces the idea that you have the power to shape your interactions and experiences. Indifference, though often misunderstood, can be one of the most transformative tools in reshaping interpersonal dynamics. When you stop investing so much emotional energy into a person, a situation, or an outcome, you reclaim a sense of power that may have been unintentionally given away. Indifference doesn't mean apathy or carelessness, rather, it signifies a shift in focus from trying to control external circumstances to prioritizing your own inner peace and well-being. This shift sends a profound message to others, often creating a ripple effect in how they perceive and respond to you. When someone is used to your emotional involvement, whether it's your constant concern, your eagerness to please, or your frequent attempts to fix problems, your sudden detachment disrupts the status quo. They become aware of a void, an absence of the emotional energy they've come to expect from you. This absence is not just noticed, it's felt. It challenges them to confront the dynamics of the relationship and their role in it. Indifference forces a reevaluation, compelling them to ask why things have changed and whether they are willing to meet you on your terms to restore the connection. The power of indifference lies in its ability to shift the focus of control. In relationships where one person consistently cares more, the other often holds the upper hand. This imbalance can lead to feelings of being taken for granted, undervalued, or even dismissed. However, when you adopt an indifferent mindset, you disrupt this imbalance. You signal that your happiness and sense of self-worth are no longer tied to their approval, actions, or validation. This shift can be both unsettling and eye-opening for the other person, as it forces them to recognize the value of what they stand to lose. Indifference also introduces an element of unpredictability into the relationship. People are naturally drawn to what they cannot fully understand or control. When you stop reacting emotionally to every situation, you become less predictable, which can heighten their interest and curiosity. They may start to wonder what has changed, why their usual actions no longer elicit the same responses, and how they can regain your attention. This intrigue often leads to a renewed effort on their part as they work to reestablish the connection that once felt secure. At the core of indifference is the principle of emotional detachment. This doesn't mean you stop caring about the person or the relationship. It means you stop allowing your emotions to be dictated by external factors. You develop a sense of self-containment where your peace and happiness come from within rather than being dependent on someone else's behavior. This emotional independence is incredibly attractive because it demonstrates confidence, strength, and self-respect. It shows that you are whole and complete on your own, which naturally draws others toward you. Indifference also serves as a mirror, reflecting the other person's behavior back at them. When you no longer react to their actions with the same intensity or urgency, they are forced to confront their own contributions or lack thereof to the relationship. They begin to notice patterns they may have ignored before, such as taking your kindness for granted or failing to reciprocate your efforts. This newfound awareness can spark a desire for change as they realize that maintaining the connection requires more effort and intentionality on their part. The impact of indifference extends beyond the relationship itself. It transforms your own mindset and approach to life. By detaching from the need for external validation, you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster that often comes with overinvestment. You gain clarity, allowing you to see the relationship for what it truly is rather than what you hope it will be. This clarity empowers you to make decisions based on your own well-being rather than out of fear, desperation, or obligation. Moreover, indifference allows you to focus on what truly matters. When you stop pouring excessive energy into someone else, you create space for personal growth, self-care, and meaningful pursuits. This shift in focus not only enriches your own life, but also enhances your sense of self-worth. You begin to see yourself as someone who deserves love, respect, and effort, not someone who has to chase or beg for it. This change in perception radiates outward, influencing how others view and treat you. Another profound aspect of indifference is its ability to break unhealthy cycles. In many relationships, patterns of overgiving and under-receiving become deeply ingrained over time. These dynamics can feel impossible to change, especially if they've been reinforced for years. However, when you step back and adopt an indifferent stance, you interrupt the cycle. You stop participating in the behaviors that perpetuate the imbalance, which forces the other person to adapt or risk losing the connection altogether. Indifference also protects you from being manipulated or emotionally drained. When you are overly invested in someone else's approval or affection, you become vulnerable to their moods, whims, and decisions. This vulnerability can lead to feelings of helplessness or frustration when things don't go as planned. But when you cultivate indifference, you shield yourself from these negative emotions. You learn to observe without absorbing, allowing you to maintain your peace and stability regardless of external circumstances. The beauty of indifference is that it doesn't require dramatic actions or confrontations. It's a quiet internal shift that naturally changes the dynamic of the relationship. By prioritizing your own well-being and refusing to overextend yourself, you set a new standard for how you expect to be treated. This standard communicates volumes without the need for words, subtly encouraging others to rise to meet it. Finally, indifference fosters resilience. It teaches you to let go of what you cannot control and focus on what you can. This mindset not only strengthens your relationships, but also equips you to navigate life's challenges with grace and confidence. It's a testament to your inner strength and a reminder that true power comes from within. When you stop caring, something remarkable happens. You shift the energy dynamic in the relationship. Emotional investment is like a stream of energy that flows between two people. When one person consistently gives more, the flow becomes unbalanced, leaving the other in a position of receiving without equal reciprocation. This imbalance often leads to one party being taken for granted while the other feels undervalued and drained. But when you stop caring, or rather, when you redirect your energy elsewhere, you disrupt that flow. Suddenly, the other person senses an energetic void where once there was a steady current of attention, care, and effort. This disruption forces them to confront the reality of your absence, even if you're still physically present. It's a paradox. By doing less, you accomplish more. This withdrawal of emotional investment creates space for the other person to reflect on their own behavior and the value of what they are losing. People often fail to appreciate what they have until it's no longer readily available. Your decision to stop overextending yourself compels them to reevaluate their actions or inactions that contributed to the imbalance. They may start to realize that the effort they thought wasn't necessary is, in fact, crucial to maintaining the connection. Energy withdrawal doesn't go unnoticed because humans are inherently attuned to changes in their environment. Imagine walking into a room where a pleasant aroma has filled the air for hours. Over time, you may stop noticing the scent, even though it's still present. But the moment the scent fades, you become acutely aware of its absence. This analogy applies to emotional dynamics as well. The person who has grown accustomed to your care and attention may not consciously register your consistent efforts, but the moment you withdraw, the absence becomes glaringly apparent. This shift also creates a psychological effect known as scarcity. When something becomes less available, its perceived value often increases. By stopping the flow of your energy and care, you inadvertently elevate your worth in their eyes. They start to wonder why the dynamic has changed, and this curiosity can prompt them to take action. The other person might attempt to reestablish the connection, often by putting in the very effort they neglected before. This is not manipulation, but a natural response to the rebalancing of emotional energy. Your withdrawal highlights what they stand to lose, and that realization can motivate them to step up. At the same time, redirecting your energy toward yourself fosters personal empowerment. Instead of pouring everything into someone else, you start investing in your own well-being, growth, and happiness. This redirection is transformative. It sends a powerful message, not just to the other person, but to yourself, that your worth is not dependent on their validation. You begin to cultivate a sense of self-containment where your happiness is no longer tied to external factors. This newfound independence is magnetic. People are naturally drawn to those who exude confidence and self-sufficiency. The act of withdrawing also serves as a form of self-preservation. Overcaring can lead to emotional exhaustion, where your own needs are neglected in favor of catering to someone else. By stepping back, you create the space to recharge and refocus. This space allows you to evaluate the relationship from a place of clarity rather than desperation. You can better assess whether the connection is truly serving you or if it has become a one-sided drain on your energy. Another profound aspect of withdrawing care is that it eliminates the pressure and expectation you may have unintentionally placed on the other person. When someone feels overly relied upon to meet your emotional needs, they might react by pulling away or becoming indifferent themselves. This isn't necessarily because they don't care, but because the weight of your expectations feels overwhelming. By stepping back, you remove this pressure, allowing them the freedom to choose how they want to engage with you. This freedom often leads to more authentic interactions, as they are no longer acting out of obligation or guilt, but from a genuine desire to connect. Interestingly, your withdrawal can also expose the true nature of the relationship. When you stop caring excessively, you gain insight into how much the other person truly values the connection. If they make an effort to reestablish balance, it's a sign that the relationship holds meaning for them. But if they continue to take your absence for granted, it's a clear indication that their investment was never equal to yours. This clarity, while sometimes painful, is liberating. It empowers you to make decisions based on reality rather than hope or illusion. The psychological impact of withdrawing care extends beyond the other person's behavior. It changes how you perceive yourself. When you stop over-investing, you begin to see your own value more clearly. You realize that your worth is not contingent on how much you give or how hard you try to keep a relationship intact. This realization boosts your confidence and reinforces the belief that you deserve mutual respect and effort in any connection. It's a profound shift that transforms not only your relationships, but your overall outlook on life. This energy shift also has a ripple effect on your external environment. As you reclaim the energy once spent on overcaring, you become more present in other areas of your life. Your career, friendships, hobbies, and personal goals start to flourish because they now receive the attention and effort that were previously drained by an unbalanced relationship. This holistic growth further enhances your sense of self-worth, creating a positive feedback loop that reinforces your decision to prioritize yourself. Moreover, your withdrawal acts as a boundary-setting mechanism. It communicates, without the need for words, that you will no longer tolerate being taken for granted. Boundaries are essential in maintaining healthy relationships, yet they are often difficult to establish when you're overly invested in someone else. By stepping back, you naturally create a boundary that protects your energy and reinforces the idea that your care is a privilege, not an entitlement. Finally, the act of caring less redefines what it means to love and connect. It's not about withholding affection or being cold, it's about loving from a place of strength rather than neediness. When you stop overextending yourself, you allow the relationship to grow in a healthier, more balanced way. You create space for mutual effort, respect, and appreciation, qualities that are essential for any connection to thrive. This redefinition of care transforms not only how others view you, but also how you view yourself and the relationships you choose to nurture. When you stop caring, you inadvertently create a psychological shift that forces the other person to face their own behavior, actions, and feelings. This dynamic is rooted in the human tendency to avoid introspection when things seem to be flowing smoothly. As long as someone else is carrying the emotional weight of a relationship, the individual on the receiving end often feels little urgency to reflect on their role. However, the moment you withdraw your attention and emotional labor, they are left with a void. This void compels them to look inward, often for the first time in the relationship. The absence of your care acts as a mirror, reflecting back to them the reality of the connection. Suddenly, they are no longer cushioned by your constant reassurance, your sacrifices, or your willingness to go above and beyond. In the silence left behind, they begin to question why things feel different. This questioning is not just about you, it's also about them. They start to wonder if their actions or lack thereof played a role in the change. This introspection is a powerful force because it disrupts their sense of complacency. It forces them to confront the possibility that their behavior has contributed to the imbalance. People are often uncomfortable with self-reflection because it requires them to acknowledge uncomfortable truths about themselves. When you stop caring, you remove the distractions they use to avoid this process. Without your constant input and effort, they have nothing to focus on but their own shortcomings. They may realize that they've been taking your kindness and generosity for granted, or that they've been avoiding their responsibilities in the relationship. This realization can be unsettling, but it is also a necessary step toward growth and change. The psychological impact of your withdrawal goes beyond self-reflection. It also triggers a reevaluation of their priorities. When someone is accustomed to receiving your care without effort on their part, they often fail to see the value of what you provide. Your attention, kindness, and emotional investment become background noise, something they assume will always be there. But when you stop, they are forced to reassess. They begin to see that your care was not an endless resource, but a gift that required effort and intention. This realization can prompt them to rethink their priorities and question why they allowed the relationship to reach this point. Another important aspect of this shift is the way it highlights the emotional dynamic in the relationship. Often, people who are used to being cared for without reciprocating do not fully understand the toll their behavior takes on the other person. When you withdraw, they are faced with the absence of the energy they once relied on. This absence is not just about the loss of your attention, it's about the loss of emotional balance. They begin to see how much they leaned on you, even if they were unwilling to admit it before. This awareness can be a wake-up call, prompting them to take responsibility for their actions. This process also reveals something deeper about human nature. People tend to value what they have to work for. When you stop caring, you shift the dynamic from one of easy availability to one of perceived scarcity. Suddenly, your attention and care are no longer guaranteed, and this scarcity makes them more desirable. The other person may find themselves longing for the very things they once dismissed as unimportant. This longing is not just about missing you, it's about realizing the depth of what they had and how much effort it will take to regain it. As they begin to grapple with these feelings, they may also start to feel regret. Regret is a powerful motivator because it forces people to confront the consequences of their actions. When you stop caring, the other person is left to deal with the fallout of their behavior. They may regret the moments when they dismissed your feelings, overlooked your needs, or failed to appreciate your efforts. This regret can be painful, but it is also a catalyst for change. It pushes them to take a hard look at themselves and consider what they need to do to make things right. This introspection and reevaluation often lead to a deeper understanding of what the relationship means to them. In the absence of your care, they may come to realize just how much you contributed to their happiness and stability. They may see that your efforts were not just acts of kindness, but expressions of love and commitment. This understanding can create a renewed sense of appreciation for you and what you bring to the table. It may also inspire them to make changes in their behavior, not out of obligation, but out of a genuine desire to rebuild the connection. The process of self-reflection can also lead to personal growth for the other person. When they are forced to confront their behavior, they may begin to see patterns that extend beyond your relationship. They may recognize tendencies towards selfishness, complacency, or emotional detachment that have affected other areas of their life. This awareness is the first step toward breaking those patterns and becoming a better version of themselves. Your decision to stop caring becomes a catalyst for their growth, even if that was not your intention. This psychological shift also has an impact on how they view you. When you withdraw, you demonstrate strength, independence, and self-respect. These qualities are inherently attractive because they signal that you are not willing to settle for less than you deserve. The other person may begin to see you in a new light, not as someone who will always be there to pick up the pieces, but as someone who values themselves enough to step away when the balance is off. This change in perception can deepen their respect for you and reignite their desire to be part of your life. Your withdrawal also creates an opportunity for them to take action. When you stop caring, you leave a space that they must decide whether or not to fill. This decision is a test of their commitment to the relationship and their willingness to make an effort. If they choose to step up, it is a sign that they value the connection and are willing to work to restore it. If they do not, it is a clear indication that they were not as invested as you once thought. Either way, their response provides clarity, allowing you to move forward with confidence. When you stop caring, you create a powerful ripple effect that extends far beyond the immediate dynamics of the relationship. One of the most profound shifts occurs in how the other person begins to view their sense of control. Many people operate under the illusion that they hold power over others, particularly in relationships where one person seems to care more than the other. This sense of control often stems from the predictable patterns of attention, affection, and effort that are consistently provided by the more invested party. But when you withdraw, you disrupt that pattern, and the illusion of control shatters. The other person may initially feel a sense of confusion or even frustration. They might wonder what happened, why things feel different, and why their usual tactics no longer elicit the same response. This confusion is rooted in the realization that they never truly controlled the situation. They were merely benefiting from your willingness to give. When you stop caring, they are forced to confront the fact that their perceived dominance was contingent on your participation. Without your active investment, the balance of power shifts dramatically, leaving them to grapple with a newfound sense of uncertainty. This uncertainty can be deeply unsettling because it challenges their understanding of the relationship. People often rely on predictable dynamics to maintain a sense of stability. When you withdraw, you disrupt that stability, forcing them to question their assumptions. They may begin to wonder if they misunderstood your feelings, underestimated your strength, or overestimated their influence. These questions create a psychological dissonance that compels them to reassess not only the relationship but also their own behavior and motivations. As they navigate this period of uncertainty, they may experience a growing awareness of their dependence on you. This awareness is not just about missing your presence, it's about recognizing how much they relied on your care, support, and emotional labor. They may realize that the stability they once took for granted was not a product of their own efforts, but a result of your unwavering commitment. This realization can be humbling, as it forces them to acknowledge the extent to which they benefited from your contributions. This shift in perspective also has a profound impact on their sense of self-worth. People often derive a sense of validation from the care and attention they receive from others. When you stop caring, you remove that source of validation, leaving them to confront their insecurities. They may begin to question why they no longer feel the same level of affirmation and what role their actions played in the change. This questioning can be uncomfortable, but it is also a necessary step toward personal growth. It pushes them to look inward and address the underlying issues that contributed to the imbalance in the relationship. In addition to challenging their sense of control, your withdrawal also highlights the emotional depth of the connection. When you care deeply about someone, your actions often speak louder than words. Your efforts, sacrifices, and willingness to prioritize their needs over your own are powerful expressions of love and commitment. When you stop caring, you remove those expressions, creating a void that is impossible to ignore. This void serves as a stark reminder of the emotional depth that once existed, prompting them to reflect on what they have lost. This reflection often leads to a deeper appreciation for the value of your care. In the absence of your efforts, they may begin to see the full extent of what you provided. They may realize that your care was not just about meeting their needs, but also about creating a sense of connection, stability, and mutual growth. This realization can be a powerful motivator, inspiring them to reevaluate their priorities and consider what they need to do to rebuild the relationship. The absence of your care also has a transformative effect on their behavior. When you stop caring, you create a space for them to step up and take responsibility for their actions. This space is not about punishment or manipulation, it's about creating an opportunity for growth and change. In the silence left behind, they have the chance to reflect on their role in the relationship and consider how they can contribute in a more meaningful way. This process is not always easy, but it is essential for fostering a sense of accountability and mutual respect. At the same time, your withdrawal challenges them to reconsider their approach to relationships. They may begin to see that healthy connections are built on mutual effort, respect, and understanding. This realization can prompt them to let go of unhealthy patterns, such as taking others for granted or avoiding vulnerability. In doing so, they open the door to a deeper, more authentic connection, not only with you, but also with themselves. Your decision to stop caring also sends a powerful message about your own self-worth. It demonstrates that you are willing to prioritize your own well-being over a one-sided relationship. This act of self-respect is not only empowering for you, but also inspiring for the other person. It challenges them to rise to your level, to meet you as an equal rather than relying on your care as a crutch. This shift in dynamic creates the potential for a more balanced and fulfilling relationship, one that is built on mutual effort and respect. As they come to terms with this new reality, they may begin to see you in a new light. Your strength, independence, and self-respect become qualities that they admire and aspire to emulate. They may realize that their perception of you was limited by their own insecurities and assumptions. In seeing the full extent of your worth, they may develop a renewed sense of appreciation for you and the connection you shared. This process is not about seeking validation or proving a point. It is about creating a space for growth and transformation. By withdrawing your care, you allow the other person to take responsibility for their own actions and emotions. You give them the opportunity to confront their own limitations, challenge their assumptions, and grow into a better version of themselves. In doing so, you also create the possibility for a healthier, more balanced connection, one that is built on mutual effort, respect, and understanding.